News!
Okay, we'll start with this. Very interesting fight set to go down early next year in January on the 13th in Germany. Former WBC minimum weight champion Tina Rupprecht will be moving down in weight to take on the Czech Republic's own atom weight champion, Fabiana Bytyqi, who has reigned as the WBC's atom weight champion for some time now, approximately 5 years as of 2018. Fabiana, she's 28, whereas Tina, she's 31. This fight for Tina will be her first fight since losing her WBC minimum weight title to Senicia Estrada earlier this year.
That was back in March, whereas Fabiana, she saw action a month later in April. Both fighters the night of the fight will have been out of action roughly the same amount of time. Fabiana sports a professional record of 20 wins with no losses, 2 draws, 5 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 22 professional bouts.
To Tina Rupprecht, who sports a professional record of 12 wins with 1 loss, 1 draw, 3 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 14 professional bouts.
I want to say that
Even though Tina Rupprecht has a lot less fights than Fabiana does, she's fought better fighters than Fabiana has, a lot better. A recorded win over Jo Costavalle, the current reigning unified minimum weight champion, as well as a win over then unbeaten Niorquis Carreno.
Rocio Gaspar, and her points decision loss earlier this year to Senicia Estrada. While Tina didn't win the fight, those are still experiences that she can draw from.
In some instances, a fighter can learn more from a defeat than they can from a victory. A defeat against a high-level fighter than victories over no-hopers and ham-and-eggers and journey women, of which Fabiana has fought quite a few. So as stated, even if Fabiana has a lot more professional bouts than Tina, it's a quality over quantity kind of deal that Tina's been in there with better fighters on more occasions than Fabiana. Fabiana, who's best described as a boxer puncher, a counter-puncher.
They both are, Fabiana and Tina. They're both boxer punchers with a few slight differences, subtle ones.
Fabiana is prone to catching and countering mid-range to inside. Tucked behind her high guard, letting her opponent waste punches on her arms and gloves. She'll counter out of that guard, whereas Tina is a bit more malleable, a bit more adaptable, bouncing back and forth, in and out of striking distance, punches upstairs, punches downstairs. I have to say that I like Tina's variety of punches more than Fabiana, and to the eye, Tina's a lot faster, more hand speed, more foot speed, foot feints.
They're good at a lot of the same things. Fabiana's a good counter puncher, but so is Tina.
Fabiana shows good movement, knows how to use the ring, but so does Tina, with the difference being that when Tina does things, they seem to be happening at a faster pace. The punches come in at a faster rate, and she shows more variety with her punches, goes to the body more, opens up the opponent more, shows initiative.
Whereas Fabiana is more prone to catching and shooting, catching and countering. That kind of strategy is contingent upon the opponent.
Or essentially letting the opponent lead the dance and waiting for their cue to let your hands go, which isn't always the best idea. We saw that this past weekend between Jade Green and Franchon Cruz.
You might see something similar between Fabiana and Tina. Tina's more of a combination puncher than Fabiana.
With Fabiana, it's only 1 or 2 punches at a time. She doesn't really string that many punches together. And as stated, she does work heavily off the counter. So how does that play out against a smaller fighter, a shorter, stumpier fighter that's very bouncy and throws a lot of punches? Well, the difference in speed.
I think Tina's gonna fluster Fabiana. I think it's gonna be Tina on the front foot, closing the distance, bouncing back and forth.
And using those foot feints to open up Fabiana, who's noticeably slower than she is, albeit a little taller and a little longer. Even though it's tiny Tina that's moving down in weight, Fabiana is the more long and limber fighter, the more statuesque boxer. Economic as well, characteristically economic. So the way I think that plays out the night of is Tina's going to be the one pushing the envelope. Tina will be the aggressor, trying to close the distance and force Fabiana to open up, trying to force her to fight. And don't forget that Tina's going to have home field advantage. This fight is going down in Germany. The busier fighter to the eye.
That'll be the one that wins the rounds.
Won't win the round, staying tucked behind that guard, only getting out 1 punch at a time. And I noticed that Tina, she changes levels more, bobs and weaves more, moves her torso to use angles and throw punches from different angles, whereas Fabiana is more textbook.
Torso is more static, more upright, less bells and whistles than what you see in Tina Rupprecht.
It's a lot of movement, a lot going on, so much that I don't think Fabiana is going to be able to land those occasional counters when she occasionally lets her hands go to get some punches out there. Tina is noticeably faster. Faster on her feet, faster hands, sharper movements. Tina's going to back her off as she closes the distance. Force Fabiana to retreat. To the judges, Tina will seem the busier fighter of the two, and that's what'll win her the round.
Fabiana is too slow and too complacent, and she's not so big a puncher that I think she'll get Tina's respect. I think Tina's going to be the busier, more prolific puncher of the two, and Tina's going to win a points decision, effectively becoming a two-division champion, one of four in the atom weight division.
Currently, Japan's own Mika Iwakawa holds the IBF title. Fabiana, who we just talked about, she's got the WBC, though not for long. Mexico's own Montserrat Alarcón, she's got the WBO, and Japan's own Yuko Koruki, she's got the WBA. Very soon, I think Tina will be ranked among them.
I like Tina to win. I like Tina on points. I think she's too fast and too sharp for Fabiana. We'll see what happens.
In men's heavyweight news, former WBC heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder said, "Parker ran from me. I'm glad he's here now because I'm gonna punish him."
This is not the first time Wilder has said this or accused Joseph Parker of avoiding him, but my question has always been, avoiding Wilder, did Wilder actually make him an offer to fight?
They will finally fight on Saturday night, almost 6 years later than Wilder had hoped, in the co-feature of a stacked card at the Kingdom Arena in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Wilder promised during a recent interview with a small group of reporters that he would make Parker pay for making him wait so long to get in the ring with him. "I definitely remember that," Wilder said, "and Joseph Parker ran from me because he's seen what I did to Gerald Washington, and he came to talk a good game and talk about, fighting me or whatever, just like all the other ones, and he's seen, the performance I had by knocking Gerald Washington out, and he fled. He ran, just like all the other ones. I always say many times, I was supposed to unify the division many, many years ago."
I remember that, and I remember the Gerald Washington fight, and what I remember is that Wilder was getting out-jabbed by Gerald Washington, that Wilder, in spite of getting the knockout, leading up to it, he didn't look good in that fight, and Joseph Parker was there. He was in attendance.
It's obvious what Joseph was doing. He was scouting Deontay Wilder, and after the fight, these guys took a picture together. But my question remains the same. Did you guys actually make him an offer? Because if you didn't make him an offer, Wilder claims that he fled. He ran, just like all the other ones. I always say many times I was supposed to unify the division many, many years ago if I had the opportunity. But unfortunately, no one has ever given me the opportunity like I've given other fighters the opportunity to fight, And it's just sad because I have a blessing and a curse. But God is good. Here we are again, A lot of great things are happening, a lot of doors have opened, and a lot of opportunities are looming around. And I'm just honored to be able to perform in Saudi Arabia and start and kick things off. And I'm looking forward to the day of reckoning.
The year is 2016.
Tyson Fury, who was unified champion for a wee bit, he's going through some things with the BBBOC and UCAD, and he ends up vacating both the IBF and WBO titles. As a result of that, two champions end up being crowned, two new ones, Joseph Parker and Charles Martin. Charles, who was on the same side of the street as Wilder at that time. And at that time, I don't recall any effort or any talks from Team Wilder to get these fighters in the ring, to get Charles Martin, then IBF champion, in the ring, or Joseph Parker, then WBO champion, in the ring. But Wilder continued, "Me and Parker, like I said, we supposed to have been fought a while back, but he ran," Wilder said. "I don't know how he built the courage up now, or whatever, but I'm glad he's here, because I'm gonna punish him, and I'm looking forward to fighting him. All in all, I'm just looking forward to fighting him, and I can't wait for it to happen. It won't be long now."
I don't think it's all that important that Wilder's saying this stuff, because the same Joseph you claim has been avoiding you, he's fighting you on Saturday night.
So it doesn't actually matter, but when I think back to circa 2016 and 2017, I know of no offers and no effort from Team Wilder to get either Charles Martin or Joseph Parker in the ring. I know of no effort made by the PBC and Shelley Finkel to see Wilder crowned a unified champion. Maybe they didn't have the money to do that at the time.
But he claims he was avoided.
But was he really?
I would love to have that fight. I mean, I tried to get that fight 3 times and he denied me. So he don't know what I know, but I know what he don't know. But again, again, I am one of those fighters that people will try to avoid as long as possible because I have the NyQuil. My new nickname is Dr. Sleep, as it's been titled in magazines.
Will you be introduced like that on Saturday?
No, I'm going to be introduced as the Bronze Bomber, but, a.k.a. Dr. Sleep. And when you have a name like that and people see it with their own eyes over and over and over and over and over. Look, most of these guys on this card, I have more knockouts than they have wins. And when it's like that, you know, respect is demanded up in the room. So I'm highly respected, and when it's like that, a lot of these guys don't want to face me, especially when you're a champion, because you look at it as like this could be the end of my career, or my titles is gonna get taken away from me, so I don't really have an opportunity or time to make the presence or the money that I want to do.
Deontay is also claiming that Alexander Usyk avoided him, that he made 3 attempts to get Alexander Usyk in a ring, but he was denied. And this is even harder to reconcile than the Joseph Parker stuff, because when you think about Alexander Usyk's last 3 fights, the 2 Joshua fights and the Daniel Dubois fight.
The question is, when did Wilder try to fight him?
When did this allegedly happen? Because going into the first Anthony Joshua fight, for Anthony's 3 alphabet titles, at that time, Wilder didn't even have a belt. I think he was still coming off the loss to Tyson Fury. Anthony and Usyk boxed each other for the first time in September of 2021. Wilder and Fury fought each other for the 3rd time the following month in October. So it couldn't have been then. It couldn't have been going into the first Anthony Joshua fight because Wilder was busy with the Fury trilogy.
And it couldn't have been after that because after Usyk beat AJ in their first fight, he had to give him a rematch. AJ had a rematch clause. Usyk was contractually obligated to fight him one more time. So it couldn't have been then.
It couldn't have been then because Usyk couldn't fight anybody else. He had to fight Anthony Joshua, and after he beat him for a 2nd time, he was on a hook for a mandatory challenger. They tried to do the Fury fight, but things didn't work out, and when they didn't, the WBA stepped in and ordered the fight between Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois. Daniel was his mandatory challenger. That's why he fought him.
You say you tried to box Usyk. When? Because he hasn't been available for a while.
When did you try to fight him?
He's also carrying on about Anthony Joshua, the usual stuff.
He said that Anthony Joshua is intimidated of me. His promoter is too. That's why the fight hasn't happened.
The only way this fight is going to happen if it's 50-50. I don't care what it is. At this point in time, it ain't even about the belts no more, baby. It ain't. As I said, I'm the most talked about. I'm the hottest fighter in the world right now, and I got 1 belt. And I got 1 belt that means more than any other belts. That's that green belt, that WBC, the most precious, the most...
I thought that's why the fight didn't happen, but Wilder's now saying money hasn't been the issue. It comes with not having the heart, the will, the courage to step in the ring, Wilder told BBC Sport. I don't really just blame it on Joshua, I blame it on his handlers, on his promotion and his management, because let's face it, Joshua is the cash cow of the company.
He says it wasn't due to the money. That's not why the fight fell apart, but in 2019, that's what he was talking about. He wanted a 50-50 split with Anthony Joshua.
This was an obstacle for a very long time. Wilder's fans arguing that he should get half the pot of an Anthony Joshua fight, and Joshua fans saying that's not the way that these things work. Anthony is a much bigger draw than Wilder, and if the roles were reversed, Wilder wouldn't give Anthony half the pot.
Wilder's fans used to argue that he's just as big a draw as Anthony, that he should get whatever Anthony gets. And I want you to pay attention to something. Who's headlining this weekend's show? Is it Wilder or is it Anthony?
It's Anthony. Anthony's fight is the main event because, as I've told you for years, he's the A-side to Deontay Wilder. Wilder doesn't have to like it, but that's the situation. Wilder, who says without him, no money is drawn into Matchroom. We all know that. Not only do I feel Joshua is intimidated of me, but I feel his promoter is as well. That's why the fight hasn't happened. I'm taking the biggest risk because they're looking past Parker, but I'm not. Wilder told Carl Frampton, Joshua is the biggest fight in combat sports, period. When people talk to me, the main thing they talk about is me and him. All the time. It applies pressure because the world wants to see it.
Yeah, they want to see it. That's not a secret. But when the world wanted to see it, and you were both champions, You cared more about chasing a Tyson Fury rematch than a Joshua undisputed title fight. And that's not me paraphrasing or putting words in Wilder's mouth. He said that himself.
I remember those days, and I remember that there were content creators here on YouTube claiming that the $100 million that DAZN offered Deontay, it wasn't even for an Anthony Joshua fight, just for Wilder to admit in late 2020 that it was for a Joshua fight and that it was more money than he stood to make boxing Fury again. But he's the one who chose to keep chasing Fury, and in the end, it didn't pay off. So what are we looking at here? What is all this about Parker avoiding him and Usyk avoiding him and AJ avoiding him? What is it?
It's nerves. I think it's nerves. You're fighting this weekend.
Except the decorum is not what Deontay is used to, and I feel like that has him rattled, a bit uncomfortable, so he seeks comfort by rehatching the same old talking points from years ago, the same old stuff we've talked about in video after video, which doesn't even matter anymore because you're boxing Joseph this weekend, and the story is, if you win and Anthony wins his next fight, you two are gonna box after that. So what's the problem?
You're now saying you still want to fight him, and he's saying he still wants to fight you.
Thus, if Wilder's carrying on the way he's been carrying on in the build-up of this weekend's show, it feels like a security blanket almost, a coping mechanism that you're out of your element, this isn't your town, you're not the A-side, you're not the one calling the shots, and you're not in control.
If you think that I'm grasping at straws for suggesting that Wilder's rattled, that he's uncomfortable, look at how much time he spent belly aching, bitching and moaning over who fights in the main event, because he knew Anthony's the main event. He's the biggest name on the show, not you.
Do you think he likes the idea that he's taking a back seat to Anthony Joshua, that you are but an opening act when he's around, and he's the bigger name, the bigger draw, and he's the A-side to you? Do you think that Wilder is comfortable with all of this? I'd wager that if he were, he wouldn't have spent as much time as he has belly aching about who fights in the main event. He's not comfortable with this.
Just repeating himself and repeating the same old tired tropes, the same old narratives from years prior to where we are now.
You're still trying to convince people that Anthony is so afraid of you after you're the one that admitted they offered you big cash to fight him, bigger money than you stood to make with Fury? So then which one is it? He's got to get past Joseph Parker on Saturday, and most people think that he can. I hope that he does, so we can settle this Joshua versus Wilder debate once and for all.